Hello, hello. Hey, Bum, I love the enthusiasm. Can't quite let you join right now. Hey there. Yes, sir, Mr. Gomez. Wait for our guest. The Bonus News Network. Oh, Elliot Yamini. Um, the bonus, no, not at all, Matt. Don't worry, Matt. You're gonna have to go clout. Matt Moscow can go clout chase elsewhere other than my comments, but we appreciate his contributions. Okay. BD. There we go. And we will have our guest in just a moment. And there he
Oh
is.
wow. Oh wow.
Yeah, it's happening.
How's it going, Matt?
It's going pretty well. How about yourself?
Having a day. It's a good day.
It's a good day. It's wild, raucous, chaotic times for all of us. You know, we're all trying to keep our head amongst the storm. People on the front lines of innovative conversations such as yourself. Matt Moscow wants to compliment your background. You're all obviously a very well-read, learned man. How many of those books seem a little classic, a little, are those just for show, or is that part of your primary reading material?
Uh, I'll tell you, I've read probably half of these, so that's the honest truth. But it's definitely a credibility bookcase. So there's no doubt that I have a credibility bookcase with the purpose of, I'm on Zoom calls all day, like as
For
part
sure,
of
for sure.
So I've got, and I've got it divided into sections. My amazing girlfriend did the
Oh
rainbow
wow.
at the top.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So, that's all Ash. But the pizza book is, I just added it here the other day because I was like, I need something that people thought was really funny. It's right
Sure.
literally above an Ah Weiwei book, so maybe not organized as proper, but there's something for everyone. There's a lot of marketing. Almost the entire top row is marketing. There's a bit of travel, London,
Sure.
Paris, Bali, of course. Then there's some architecture, design, creative, and then obviously a little pizza. And
Yeah, of
that's where you
course.
get the best pizza anywhere in the U.S. In case you're
I,
wondering.
I love it. I love it. No, I've seen some of a little bit, and we'll talk about some of the fatigue of the Instagram live and the Instagram cooking show and whatnot. But you've
So much.
definitely planted your flag in terms of being someone that people need to see what he's cooking and how he's cooking on the gram. So we excited to see where you take this. Maybe merge the personal and the professional. We will see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, cooking on Instagram is, I want to see how far a nerdy Jewish guy can get as an influencer.
I'm trying to carve the way. I'm trying to carve the
I'm
path.
learning a little from Matt Moscow. Speaking of influencers,
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of influencers, listen, Matthew is really, I'm more of a generalist. I'm general interest. Matt Moscow has gone like health, wellness with a little bit of a nature vibe. It's surfer dude version. And we
yeah,
God bless him for it. He also has his own brand of trolling my comments, particularly like he's into branding. He's a master brander. So he likes kind of finding, yeah, Matt, you might have already blown your load within the first 4 minutes of this interview in the comments section. You might have to come back in about 20 minutes, but we're interested to see what you come up with tonight, Matt.
yeah,
Okay. Awesome. Great to have Brett here. Friend of mine for a long time and someone who's done some incredibly impressive stuff. Just, purely as an entrepreneur and also, in terms of his particular domain. So Brett, tell us a little bit about your background and, what you were doing and how you got to where you are right now and what you're up to. And to frame it, I think, your path through nightlife, more traditional PR and events, pre-social media, now to what you're doing, in a really innovative space in the branding and social media era is a great proxy for where, how branding has evolved over the past decade, 10, 15 years.
yeah. I feel like I was part of like such a big shift because I pretty much got my start in 2006. saw the 2008 recession, which I watched people pop off at night at Opera Crimson more than, you know, in the middle of 2009, like nothing was happening.
Yeah.
So, you know, but my path was interesting. I went to Tulane University in New Orleans. That was the college that I was meant to go to. And in my senior year, Hurricane Katrina happened. And and I'm from LA. I'm from Calabasas, sadly. And you know, when I graduated, or when I was displaced from Katrina, I went to SC for the semester because I had a ton of friends there. I was like, you know, it was very easy to assimilate into that world. When I was at SC was when I got a job working for a guy named David Judakin. He had a club called the Garden of Eden, and I was at SC for that semester, and I was like, me and my buddy Ryan Lipson were like, let's like park a bus on the row and see if people want to go to like real nightclubs. And it wasn't like a 28th Street party. It wasn't Moscow's all over this. It wasn't a 28th Street party. It was like, we're going to go to real clubs like Mood on Fridays, LAX on Thursdays, Vanguard Saturdays. It was like, I remember bottle service was just invented.
Yeah.
And if you bought one bottle, you were like king of the club. You bought a bottle, it was like $200. Now, if you buy one bottle, they put you like in the bathroom. You know, like they don't even give you. I don't even know if you get a table. Like, if you buy a bottle, they make you drink it at the bar. There's no real estate. But I thought David Jacob was a really interesting guy. He was definitely really, you know, obsessed with nightlife. This was before Sam Nazarian. Sam Nazarian had one club. He had Shelter. You know, I thought that I was going to go to law school. That was the plan. So I called my mom. I said, hey, I'm graduating. I'm going to take 1 year. I'm going to be a promoter, make money, and then for sure I'll go to law school. We'll get working out.
The plan you had there, Brett. Unfortunately, I wasn't crafty enough. I couldn't think of that, and I just went straight to law school. Fuck
yeah,
shit.
you know the deal.
Yeah.
So when I graduated, I just was like for a year, just party Brett. And I was very quickly, I realized that the other club promoters liked me because I was really good at giving them advice on how to make money. And, you know, everyone would be like, hey, what's an invoice? How do I send it? Or like, can you call the club owner and tell him he owes me money? And I would hunt these club owners down for money. And we invented a lot of ways to get, a lot of schemes to get paid. And I think during, you know, that year really got promoters in LA market. Club promoters uniquely run the show. They make all of the gross margin, all of the profits. You go to Vegas, New York, Miami, it's not like that. The owners make all the money, but it was LA that we would just call these guys and we'd be like, what's your net profit? And they're like 30%. We'd be like, great, we want 25%. And they're like, we put up $2 million to build this thing. What are you talking? And we would get it. We would get it all the time. So, you know, I started promoting. I met one of my old best friends, Tomic, club promoting. And we moved into a house together with a bunch of other crazy people. We didn't make it very long in that house before we got evicted, but we had just like a really great couple of years. And, you know, but I always wanted more. I always wanted that next step. Quickly, you know, realized that being in nightlife in LA is that networking superhighway. It met so many great people, heads of studios, met, you know, forget celebs.
And this is an interesting point. Okay, a lot of people knock, and this is a conversation I had with, you know, one of your former promoting partners, Andy Belinsky, many times, where, you know, listen, some people, there's many ways to knock promoting, but in Los Angeles and in New York, I mean, I'm sure it's a different paradigm out there. Yeah. In Los Angeles, being in nightlife and being a promoter, if you're shrewd, can present immense opportunities because you're putting yourself around a lot of interesting and powerful people, and you're putting yourself in a position of power in regards to them. How many other ways can you do that? There's not that many ways.
There's not many ways that a CEO of Fashion Nova, you know, well, you know, who is a young guy, but will text you.
Richard Sagan. I was in PE class with Richard Sagan like
Yeah,
years in a row. He's my guy. Rich.
Guy has big budgets, you know, and he's not going to text anyone, but if he wants to go out, so I would meet heads of all different kinds of companies, some that were awesome and some that were failing all the time. There was a lot of Ed Hardy guys coming around. I remember
that era, mid-late 2000s. Woo!
Ed Hardy, some guy came in. He had bought the license for $500,000 to have an Ed Hardy energy drink. He burned through like $4 million in 6 months, and spent a bunch with us, and then that was it. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So promoting, being in nightlife, you really can network, and I was pretty restrained. I feel like I didn't party too hard. I kept it cool. I always looked at the next step, and the next step for me was, the technical side of event planning. How do we figure it out? How do we understand the technical aspects, lighting, sound, stage, decor, operations, staffing, catering, and really start bringing the club to other places. How do we turn a parking lot into a club? How do we turn a church into a club, which we did? How do we turn the Hollywood Forever Cemetery into a club? And, and then also do that for companies. And it was really early on that I would talk to, I met a bunch of people from Fox really early on, and they're like, oh my God, we want to do this event for Avatar. Can you help us figure it out? I was like, yeah. And suddenly I was in a room with James Cameron. I was like 24, and James Cameron was like listening to whether or not I could figure out a 5.1 surround sound system, which back then was like the best. I was like, so production was like kind of phase 2 for me. And I thought event planning was the end all be all. And I love it. And I have a billion stories from weird, crazy stunts I did. We like broke the Guinness World Record for watching TV with The Simpsons in the middle of Hollywood and Highland. It was a freak show.
Awesome.
And then, I found kind of later on that events are an amazing vehicle for marketing, and that there's so much more to the idea of not the event, but the experience and everything that comes along with it. So we, started to really pivot. I was called Night Vision Entertainment. That was my company forever. And I decided we're just going to call it NVE. So that way, when people Google Brett Hyman, they won't see like me pouring vodka down people's throats in the back room at 14. And
sure. Although, let's be honest, I think it's time to get those to at least let's call it the third page of your Google results. I don't want them page 1. Let's get them to page 3.
Yeah.
If you're willing to dig far enough and deep enough on Brett Hyman, you get to those pictures. That's what I think. That's what
you get to like club kids take it out of college, like campusfocus.com writing an article on us. Like,
No.
I mean, if you really want to go back, I was actually doing this in college, and I threw the most epic concert with the Nappy Roots and Mystical in New Orleans, and I lost so much money. I accidentally, sold a bunch of footage. Oh no, Ash, don't do it. I sold a bunch of footage to a Little John concert, and it ended up as a B-roll in a porn.
We're getting out of the gate strong here right now. Holy shit. Love it.
Yeah, all sorts of crazy things happened. And
we're going to get to the Tulane experience. A friend of mine, John Cohen, is a Tulane to the core, and then he's like, got to ask Brett about Tulane. So that's going to happen. We can also compare Brett Hyman losing a bunch of money on a Mystical concert as the college club promoter guy, music promoter guy, versus Andy Belinsky losing a bunch of money on The Game, a concert for The Game at University of Michigan. Who knows? But we're going to get to that. Okay, so you go through the nightlife ringer. You realize, okay, there's commonalities between nightlife and some. Don't worry, James, this is recorded. You see that there are. So, man, Mystical's going to hop in these comments. I can just tell.
Yeah, Maria Herrera.
All right. So
talent.
you can see, and this is something that I noticed, is that there were a lot of people in nightlife who were a little more business-minded, a little more strategic, and they found commonalities between nightlife and event-based, that's event-based marketing or some facsimile of that for brands, and that's how they segue. And you clearly saw that, and you took that path for a minute.
Yeah, I remember the day I was 29 years old was the day that I got out of nightlife. It was like a really long struggle to find a way to have a stable job outside nightlife. I called it the stripper era though, for like, it was for 5 years, from age like 24 to 29. My day job was trying to build this events company, but my night job was club promoting, and that's what I had. That's what made the money. Every dollar I made in club promoting, I invested into building a live events business.
Awesome.
And to get and pay rent, and that was it. So yeah, I mean, I got to this period where I realized I could finally give up the nightlife business, focus entirely on events. I think we had like 4 or 5 employees. It was, we had like this little office that was, the size of like, a bedroom in a house, in Hollywood. And that was the beginning of the true version of the company I have now today, which has also gone through a lot of iterations, but,
For sure. Okay, so
yeah.
something, we're going to get it before we get to exactly what you're doing right now. We're going to get to a little bit more of a macro question, and you talk about that. Okay, so right now you're in experiential marketing. Obviously, the implication is experiences. Okay, two very interesting points that you've made. One, previously we had, it was very clear. We had a goods economy and a services economy. Either you were selling goods, you were selling services for the most part. You say now we have a goods economy, we have a services economy, and we have an experiences economy. And that comment resonated with me very powerfully, because it's true. Okay, because now with social media, with the prospects of virality, everyone with essentially carrying around a camera and a camcorder. Okay, I saw a film then when I woke up this morning from 2008. The guy who was playing like the videographer of the crew, had to carry around one of those, like, oh, it looked cool at the time, one of those very next generation Samsung camcorders. Okay, every youth person in the world now is that guy, has that camcorder and that camera in their pocket. So now with that at scale across society, experiences are now an entire third leg of the stool of the economy, in addition to services and goods. So that piece, and then the idea that because of this obviously there's event marketing. All events are an experience, but not all experiences are events. So why don't you tell us about those two theories, and then we'll talk about how that funnels into what you're doing right now.
So yeah, I mean, it all comes down to consumption. The American economy is based on the idea we consume things, that we consume goods and we consume services. We, get our nails done, or we buy dinner from Catch. And, the truth is that people started to realize that experiences commanded a much higher value. You actually, you start with the bottom is the commodity, like the commodity is paper. And then you turn the commodity into a good, and that becomes, a Post-it note, and you buy a Post-it note, right? And then you take, the good and you turn it into a service, and, it's a poster board or something like, there could be a couple different versions of like how that would be a service, but maybe it's actually the app Notion, or one of those cool apps that has you, that you manage tasks. And then now what people are wanting, there's this higher value that is experiences, and people will pay 10 times for an experience than they will for a good or a service. So a lot of products think of themselves as experiences. And what I tapped into is the idea that experiences are valued so high that they also can be a marketing conduit. They can also be a way for brands to tell their story, to get people to change their behavior or sentiment about that brand. But the experience economy is concerts, it's art, it's all different types of things like Art Basel and art shows. It's, the sporting world has, I think, become more, it was a services world. It really has become an experiential world now.
Sure. I mean, that tracks back, sorry, continue.
Well, I was gonna say FanDuel, and those like fantasy leagues have become the experiential side of the sports world. Now you are a player in the game when you are, being able to create the fantasy side of sports. And that's really that's the difference between an experience and just consuming a piece of content. Consuming a piece of content, Netflix, a lot of those are passive entertainment. But an experience truly is where you are a character in the story. So I do believe that
Two-way street.
yeah, it's a two-way street, and many people can have the same, can be in the same experience, but have a different personalization of that experience. People will interpret everyone's Neon Carnival moment is very different from the next person, even though we're at the same event.
Well, because everyone's brain is scrambled enough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into that right now. We'll get to that in a while. And I think, sports, just to track back something that's a piece of history in terms of event marketing and the evolution of events, is the live sports experience changed forever with a man named Jerry Buss, who bought the Lakers in 1979. And so many vestiges, so many things that we now see that are just completely feel inherent to the sports viewing, the live sports experience, all started with Jerry Buss. Okay. There was no one doing any, the Dallas Cowboys a little bit in the 70s with their cheerleaders. Basketball did not have cheerleaders that were interesting, did not have live music, there was no energy, there was no vibe. Jerry Buss revolutionized the live sports experience in ways that are now a blueprint and default features and characteristics of every live sports experience. And that was a time when things were more rudimentary. You didn't have the production value, you didn't have digital, you didn't have the shareable economy. And so that just kind of gives you a little insight into how these things can kind of evolve. Okay, yeah. So now, as you were saying, experiences are this kind of hybrid between goods and services, yet still has characteristics that are completely separate from either of them, and is the third, real bucket of the economy.
Yeah. I mean, and in the economics is all about, in my opinion, general economics is about how do we trigger the brain chemicals. That's kind of where I go with that. In the end, we consume things that trigger dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and I guess what I've been looking at is, that's why sports is obviously a dopamine trigger. It's why we get addicted to sports, addicted to gambling, addicted to alcohol. Serotonin. That's really the leadership drug. It's triggered by the idea of helping others, but oxytocin is the drug that is triggered, or not even the drug, the chemical that's triggered in our brain when we cooperate together in groups. I think that
man is a social animal. People, not to butt in on what you were describing, that is something that is important, that is so primitive and on a cellular level exists within all of us. People got to remember, pre-industrial revolution, for 3,000 freaking years of mankind species, we were trained and we evolved to be social animals, because if you lived alone, you died. Okay?
Exactly.
You had to go be part of the tribe, because if you guys hunted together, you gathered together, you protected each other, you were more likely to live. Thus far, it is ingrained in us to be social, and that plays into what you're describing right now.
Exactly. And it's interesting because I've been doing research for a week, and I'm coming out with an article next week that shows that loneliness is up, that suicide hotline calls are up, that signing up for therapy apps like Talkspace is up like 500%. And it's because the Zoom stuff, even what we're doing right now, is not triggering oxytocin.
Sure.
And it seems to be that we're not it doesn't count as group cooperation. I guess Mother Nature still knows that if I got attacked right now in my, bookcase room, that I'd still get killed because you're not here, and, so I think that we are searching for ways to trigger the chemicals. Those are the things that we're consuming. And it seems that you can get a very long-lasting, amazing hit of oxytocin through these shared experiences. And that's why we go for them. And that's why we like them. And obviously, you and I know that all the companies in the world have gotten much more efficient at becoming delivery vehicles for dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphin to some degree. And it's what's happening with social media and why people are addicted to that. It's what's happening with online betting and all those things, and it's definitely why people are at minimum missing events. And my mission right now is to figure out how do I replace that important component of human life without, without being able to do gatherings, so,
Sure. Okay, so what we're going to get deeper into that. All right, so the experience economy, the nature of experiences and how important they are to us with humans being social animals, just like as someone even mentioned in the comments. Even the fact that, and this is why I'm just going to tell you right now, this is why I keep these chats on Instagram Live and don't move them to Zoom, because it's more fun with all you guys in the comments. And we can dissect how that it suggests a lot of different things. Anyways, okay, so now that brings us to what you're doing right now with NVE Agency, with a true, if not the top experiential agency in America, one of the top ones on the front lines with the biggest companies in the world. Tell us about your company right now, the clients you have, and the projects you've been doing the last few years, and then we'll get into what's going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, the long and the short of NVE is, we call ourselves an experiential agency. Unfortunately, way too many companies have defined that in different ways. So some people are really just like event planners and wedding planners, and like it's an experience. It's but to me, experiential means helping a brand create an emotional connection with a consumer, because in the end, these chemical triggers. And most advertising and marketing works when there's an emotional connection engaged. So how we believe to create those emotional connections is to find a way for consumers to play a role in the brand story. What we've been doing the past few years, a majority of it, 70-80% of it, has been creating all different kinds of experiences. Sometimes they're for consumers, so popping up a Dyson showroom at the Grove and creating a unique experience during the holidays so mom can go buy a new vacuum or hair dryer, is one version of that. And designing that and thinking about how that environment will encourage you to have more affinity for Dyson. But also helping Adidas go to all the high school campuses and celebrate those, the athletes that are up and coming in high school that came from low income, low means neighborhoods, and give them, access to a really fun tournament that Adidas will pay for and stage and bring product to and bring professional coaches to, so, there's a lot of good, in what experiential can do. Brands, I believe, have, an opportunity to be facilitators, to be catalysts of these joyful, positive experiences. And truth, and you'll find that some do it in a way that clearly looks like a marketing ploy, for sure. And, with their wall, or step and repeat walls or stupid things that really aren't engaging, and others have meaning and purpose behind it. So, the past few years, as I've said, we've done all these different types of consumer-facing events. We've, gone to Comic-Con and released tons of different shows and video games for the studios. We've been at Coachella working on things like Neon Carnival, but also bespoke, activations. We've gone to Sundance many times. We've done a lot of things. So but we also believe that experiences have transcended more than just live events and gatherings, that there are many different ways to deliver experiences in all different places, whether they are delivering you the experience at home, whether they're kind of bringing people together virtually. There's a lot more, and we've been working on that. Influencer marketing is a really big, powerful experiential marketing, and I've been constantly pushing brands to get over the damn influencer brunch and think a little bit bigger about how to forge an authentic piece of content with an influencer, and maybe it will cost more money or more time, but be more authentic and resonate in the long term. So, all that stuff kind of rolls up into our universe, and brands are really confused because they have had an ad agency and a PR agency for a very long time.
Yeah.
And we're the whole marketing and advertising world has been really shaken up before this, and now, of course, because of this. But linear TV numbers are going through the ground. Print media was already on the chopping block. Radio is just dead. And, you know, we do a lot of, you know, we say, hey, there's a much more authentic vehicle here. And brands have been recognizing that over the past few years. We've gone from talking to, you know, event managers at brands to talking to CMOs and even
So
CEOs.
let's just to kind of broaden that conversation. Okay, so everyone's got to understand. Until recently, until the last 4 or 5, maybe 6, 7 years, okay, most big brands had these traditional Madman-esque agencies, big, mostly on Madison Avenue. They were creating print ads. They were doing the same fucking thing they've been doing for about 50 to 60 years, generally. Creating print ads, TV ads, and little permutations on that, okay? Then the world got blown to fucking smithereens with Instagram, with social media, with influencers, okay? And all of a sudden, and this was something, I was working at a company, I was running the legal department for a company called Awesomeness TV, which yeah, so that represented a lot of the first generation of younger influencers. And watching brands try to figure out how to use these people was fascinating. Because all of a sudden, I would look at these multi-million, if not billion-dollar advertising agencies that had no clue what was going on. That would literally sight unseen come to Awesomeness and say, you guys have some young influencers that have big followings. We have no clue what to do. Please tell us what to do. Please. And they were sitting there trying to figure out, how do I keep on justifying either one, a massive retainer, or two, a massive share of ad spend, or whatever the revenue model is. And it was like they were trying to play middleman, but it wasn't good, it didn't work. And you know, you, someone more nimble, boutique, but still have the relationships, was able to step into the void.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you the truth about how it started. And you know, I remember going to CES, and I was talking to the executive vice president of Fox Home Entertainment, and you know, I was like, they had spent $3 million. It was so everyone was wearing a suit and tie, you know, all these different, you know, it was and they were having this cocktail party, and I'm like, is really this the best you guys can do, you know? And they're like, what do you mean? This is great, you know, all of the right people are here. I was like, but will any of them remember it? Will any of them, you know, feel an affinity toward 20th Century Fox or whatever titles we're promoting, you know, etc. And you know, he's like, well, what do you think it should be? And I said, let's go to XS. And you know, I suddenly tapped into the relationships I had built, and you know, D May was in here, and I still do it all the time, where I will text a, you know, promoter friend that's a genuine friend of mine and say, hey, I'm going to bring like an SVP of a major, you know, retailer, or, you know, a major brand by, and they'll just, you know, open the doors and be amazing. And their lights line up, and then they will put me on a call with these other agencies that advise them. And I remember a time when a guy was Googling on the call, where's Coachella? Like, they didn't know where it was. They're like, they were confusing it with Outside Lands, I think, because they kept saying San Francisco. I did pivot from saying I know club people to we understand the nexus of culture and marketing, and the idea that there is a way to leverage culture. There is a way to understand music and art and fashion. And, you know, here we are in LA. There's all these agencies that are based in Toledo, Ohio, and Chicago and Denver that just didn't have their pulse on entertainment. And that really helped me launch.
Geography is important, literally. I mean, I can remember there was a deal with Kohl's. Kohl's was in fucking Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Okay. They don't fucking know how to reach the youth. Okay. They were routing for decades, routing everything through New York. Okay. Once the people in credit to Kohl's for realizing the people in New York didn't know what was going on and saying, hey, let's go to LA and see if these people know what's going on.
Yeah. You know, and Kohl's goes and signs a big multi-bazillion-dollar deal with Lauren Conrad, right, during the days of the Hills. Shout out Ledoux. And,
yes.
You know, I feel that that stuff has been working. And that stuff, that was like the first probably influencer deal before influencers, right? There wasn't enough media then for her to promote those deals. Probably like a paid ad campaign, you know, with ads running on MTV. But that whole world has died. And
Yeah.
you know, I don't know if people understand how big that economy is, the advertising, television, media economy. It's gigantic. And brands.
You want to know what I think shows people how large it is?
Yeah.
The fact that it still was bigger than the internet until about 18 months ago.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's crazy that, I mean, people in middle America, I mean, still right now are watching linear television, right? It's the Big Bang Theory. It, you know, just made that happen. They weren't watching Game of Thrones. It was the people on the coast watching Game of Thrones, but watching the Big Bang Theory, and all those kind of ridiculous, you know, just standard shows. The advertising was through the roof. That has all changed. COVID and this crisis has already permanently altered a lot of our viewing and consumption habits in a lot of ways.
So let's talk. Tell me what you believe a permanent. Even let's say tomorrow, someone the Chinese send us some. They finally say, hey, all the research and data that we've been hiding from you, here it is. It shows it. We'll admit it. This is kind of a hoax. This is the flu plus. It fucked a couple people up. Everybody get back to normal. What does not go back to the way it was starting tomorrow? What is permanent?
Movie theaters, attendance in movie theaters. I think that people have gotten really comfortable with how they can consume at home. People have been there are a lot of people saying that TVs are selling really well now. So I bet everyone's upgraded their home theater in the past, or not.
Yeah, that's a another brick in the wall of the conversation I had with Eric Huberman, where he said pretty much, he's talking about every aspect of e-commerce, and he says anything that enhances the residential experience has been selling well.
Selling well. Restoration Hardware stocks up. Obviously
Home
Amazon,
Depot.
Best Buy. Those companies, we are. I'm going to get to home gyms too, but the movie theater is one I'm watching really closely because I want to be ahead. I work for a ton of studios, and we are looking at reinventing the premiere, the release, the window. I mean, we've written 1,000 proposals in the past just 30 days. We're busy, and
Sure.
it's reinventing these conduits for them. So movie theaters, I don't think they're going to be over. I think attendance is going to be down. I mean, how horrible were we touching? I mean, I was, what kind of demented person was I to touch a movie theater cup holder and, get all of the ice out of those machines? Like, I don't know how many people are going to forget that or, in the short term. And by the way, we're all going to forget everything. So everyone that says the open office is over, and I'm doing a lot of work on offices. Then but the consumption is going to go down in movie theaters. That Ashley is right in her comment, which is the studios do want to keep the movies in theaters. They're adamant. They're obsessed. They make way more money in those tickets. However, if the consumers, I think that it's just a matter of time that consumer demand will continue to shift. And what they'll start doing is they won't stop showing it in theaters, but they'll start fudging the release window.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in here because this is a topic that about 14 years ago I wrote this as my law school, entertainment. I got lucky. I was at UCLA Law School, and my third year they finally decided to put together an actual entertainment and media law and policy program. So I was able to write my thesis on this topic because you got to understand, 2006 was an era when music had been disrupted. But music was the only piece of media that had truly been disrupted. Everyone was still waiting for what was going to happen with movies and with television.
Yeah.
And I dive deep into this topic of, will the movie theater experience survive? And my conclusion was, yes, it will, because just as we were talking about earlier, people want a common experience. Okay, the chemical release, the enjoyments of the experience, the pure. How just primitive the film going experience is to us is real. Okay, is that meaning that it's completely unalterable and it's purely defensible in the way it's not? No, because of the things that you're mentioning, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that you're mentioning, and one of the reasons, something that's been it's insane, that has been holding the movie theater and the theater going experience together for probably 10 at least 8, maybe up to 12 years together is this Mexican standoff, this game of chicken between movie companies and distributors and studios and the movie theater companies. And they say, movie theater companies say, listen, we have multi-billion-dollar businesses, okay? If you try to screw with our experience and start releasing movies day and date, at least without cutting us in on it, we're gonna not release your movies. And that finally happened. This is something that I find just both from a business aspect and socially and even spiritually and existentially very interesting. That it took the coronavirus to finally make that 12 years in of this battle. It finally brought this to a head. The first time ever, Universal, I believe it was, released Trolls. They said, well, we've got this fucking movie. What are we going to do with it? We can't release it in theaters. Nobody can go to theaters. We're going to release it. They released it straight up, direct to consumer. It did great business. And the and AMC said, okay, you did that. We can't let you get away with it. We're not gonna show Universal movies in our theaters anymore. And I feel like that is just a groundbreaking. That is something. That's a moment that is going to shift this aspect of American and Universal life forever.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that? So when you say that's going to shift, do you think that that will end up leading to the exit of movies going to movie theaters? You think that?
Because yes, for the following reason, right? It's about consequences and opportunity costs.
Yeah.
If your movie studio's there and you're sitting around thinking, okay, I'm not going to do this thing that may be rational because my partner is going to deliver a consequence onto me. Yeah. Then you're going to say, okay, for 12 years, okay, Jonathan Furman, I'm interested to hear. Throw some comments, interesting ideas into the comment box because Jonathan's very much in the know. But so if you're sitting there thinking, I'm not going to do this because my partners are going to punish me, and you sit there teetering on that edge for 12 years, that tension. If you finally experience the tension and someone finally budges, it's all you've entered a new phase. Mm-hmm. You've entered a new phase. You can't come back. It doesn't mean that these two parties are never going to do business again, but things are going to be different forever after that.
Totally. That example, which everyone has been studying and looking and figuring out whether or not there will be peace between them, which there ultimately was. It to me is the reason why the movie experience is going to change, and I think it's changing on a lot of fronts. I think part of it is just if 20% less people go to the movie theater business, the economics of the movie theaters change. These are expensive pieces of real estate, and number two is the retail universe as well, and will be when JCPenney gets bought by Amazon or Shopify in the next few weeks or months, you're going to see these very large pieces of real estate come up and either have to act as local distribution centers, which I think is what Amazon would do with a JCPenney, or reinvent themselves. So the other side of it might be movie theaters just reinvent what that experience is. Maybe it's not sticky floors and and it actually is more experiential. I don't think it's more 3D. I also don't think it's like everyone wears a costume. I do think that there's a dimension to how these movies can be more interactive, can be more of an experience, like a Disneyland, where maybe the whole mall becomes this movie, or a portion of the mall becomes part of it. We haven't thought about it yet because there was a lot of talk that Amazon was going to buy AMC as well when they get more distressed, because it doesn't take. Everyone's like, oh, people are never going to go to movies. People are all going to go back. Yes, a lot of people are going to go back, but 20% changing your behavior is a big deal. Same thing with Equinox. 20% of people don't go to Equinox anymore. I think Equinox is in trouble with their real estate deals.
For sure. We'll kind of direct it back to movies because this is one interesting aspect. And this is something that gets bandied about quite a bit. There's a reason that popcorn is like $8 at the movies, and you see how that it's all fucked up, that like you get for the second biggest Coke that you've ever had is about $4.75. And then for the biggest Coke you've ever had is like $5.25.
Yeah.
Okay.
50 cents more.
They're driving, movie theaters are absolutely destroying you on the margins on concessions. They make a ton of money on concessions, right? That's been built into the model. That may have to change, because what are you going to do? As you mentioned, if you take away 5, 10, 15, 20% of movie theater goers, there you go, Brian Diamond, obvious, very, very true person on this topic. If you take that, if you have to recalibrate for that, you're not going to be, no one's paying $12 for a little popcorn. You're going to have to find the revenue somewhere else, or you're going to have to cut the cost. Or you're going to have to get super innovative, and yes, not basic bitch. Ooh, let's do Rocky Horror Picture Show, but for, no, sorry. Okay, Boomer, nobody cares about that.
Right. Totally.
They're going to have to reinvent that experience entirely.
Yeah. I think the experience will be reinvented. And it's not a debate about whether or not movie theaters are gone or whether everyone's going to go or not going to go. It's going to be this trend downward of a lot of money, which these companies probably have enormous amounts of debt. They're leveraged like crazy.
Yes, they are.
They have big real estate, and that's the biggest thing that I think might have the ripple across the economy is these huge footprints in terms of the world of commercial real estate. We should ask Jay Lutz about it.
And we will.
Talking about it, but all these different, big pieces of real estate gone. J.C. Penney's, malls, like all, I'm interested in that. But I do think though there are certain behaviors that are going to lead to a massive change. Maybe that change is slow, maybe it's fast, but it's going to be a big fundamental shift. Gyms are another big one that I'm really interested in as well.
For sure. Okay, so to stick on the film theme and somewhere where your direct business does play into is movie premieres.
Yeah.
That's not the only thing you do a lot more, but that's part of your bread and butter. Okay, so how do you reimagine the movie premiere experience?
100 different ways, and it really depends on, I think, who the audience is to begin with. There are, the talent for these movie premieres, it has always been the star. It's been really interesting. You go down Hollywood Boulevard and you see, when The Rock is walking the red carpet, and there's people in the stands. So for me, the purpose of a movie theater, a movie premiere has already been going down. The value of it's been going down a lot. Studios have been talking about it for a long time because PR isn't so, like, getting a photo of The Rock on a red carpet and then putting that in Us Weekly just doesn't deliver a bunch of people into the theater. So it's an opportunity for brands to think of premieres as an opportunity to bring the fans into the story. And we've already been doing a lot of stuff like that, and now it's just being hyper accelerated pretty fast because fans. So for me, it's all about thinking of a way where fans participate in the story. Things that we're looking at are how do we deliver an experience at home? Like, that's the basic. And I hate using those examples because I don't want to give anyone the impression that everything is just going to be an experience ported to an at-home experience. It's not. But there's a lot of fun things that we can do with delivering a whole bunch of really cool kits. We can deliver the popcorn. We can make the movie experience pretty special at home for the top 200 fans that win a contest, that make a piece of content. The other is leveraging social. We've been looking at what type of content can we create to win an opportunity to watch the premiere with a big, star of a movie. And, without going into details and some plans of some studios, they're one idea that's not going to happen. So I can tell you is, what if we replaced your dry cleaning with a costume of a famous, of a person in the movie, right? And all you had to do was make a TikTok video to win an opportunity to watch the movie with him or her,
Yeah.
So there's so many incredible ways that people can play a role in the movie. Then there's the logistics, and we've been redesigning the red carpet. We actually have a design of it's basically spiraling it out and then creating glass partitions so that if we go back to doing these red carpets and premieres, you have more space, you have reporters. We even have a robot virtual reporter that can interview you. And that might happen. I don't think so, but it might. We're at least giving those.
I feel like the VR thing, I mean, I don't want to use VR as kind of an umbrella term, but that's something that people have been banging that gong for a while now. And I think there's more friction in delivering that experience than people seem to think. But one thing I saw in, some materials that you sent regarding a film company is creating almost a neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
maybe you can dive that. That looked incredibly interesting, but I couldn't quite understand it. Maybe
Yeah.
you can tell us a little bit about what that looks like, or what you envision that looks like.
The idea of building the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what we're looking at is building real world sets from things, out of these films or TV shows, and allowing people to explore them. That has been, it's basically mini theme parking, and it looks like an enormous amount of open real estate available. Malls. We have had more calls with malls saying, take our empty spaces and do something with them. So we're looking at those opportunities as micro amusement parks. What can we do in those spaces temporarily, long term? So, one idea that we've been floating around is, building out a neighborhood and allowing people to live a day in the life of Mrs. Maisel, for example. That's not an idea we pitched, but that's one that would make sense. And, have actual people be cast members or be cast in the story. And you can have, one part is we have an active restaurant. That's a restaurant from the show. We have an active, other component that's actual things from these shows. It would get so much more earned media, social content, and engagement with the fans that, the premiere can't generate. So, those have been a good idea. I mean, even really simple ideas right now, there's a lot of scary movies that might have to come out. So we talked about an idea.
That's interesting. Okay.
What if we partnered with Calm or Headspace and did a good night story app, right? And it was in the theme of the movie, and it was the prelude, the pre-movie experience, but it helped you sleep at night. We told you, this movie is so scary that we're going to give you a 6-month subscription to this app that's going to help you sleep at night, right? And you
love that. That's great. I love
viral stunt we can create. It's experiential. It doesn't require mass gathering. It's a way to get press and tell a story and do all these different things. That's been really big. There's just 1,000. I mean, we have pages and pages of ideas that are getting thrown around right now.
Okay, something, guys. We're going to go past this first hour. You've got pages and pages of ideas. Okay, we're at minute 53 right now, guys. I'm going to stop this live right now, so we're going to fire it back up for another session, because we're going to run out in 7 minutes. We've got a lot more to talk about. We're going to get into more of those items in a second. Guys, I'm going to use the bathroom so we can keep going. So give me 2 minutes. I'm going to stop this live. Give me 90 freaking seconds, and we're going to fire it back up. Don't worry. Instagram's going to figure this out eventually if it kills them. Okay, we're going to stop it right now, guys. Fire it back up in about 90 seconds.
See y'all soon.
Cool. Okay. Giles, yes. Round 2, you've done a great job on being first. Yeah, I use the restroom very quickly. Right there. Conversation's cranking, so really looking for the rest of the session with Brett. Ashara, my hike was phenomenal. I thought it was going to be a little too hot today. It ended up not being. It's really good. Let Brett hop in just a second here, guys. Yeah, today was a great day to hike in Los Angeles. Everyone, it feels like we're getting back to real life a little bit. It wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold. Definitely a great day for hiking. Russian Rob. Woo! My God, things are about to heat up a little bit here.
Giles, don't worry. Tyson's gonna happen. Don't you worry, bro. I got Tyson. You know, whatever. He's got a little back problem, but we'll be fine. Brett.
Okay. Yes, Ashara, I did make it to the top of the Paseo Miramar hike today. And we'll have Brett Hyman come in for round two. There we go. Okay, so Brett, you're right there.
We go. This was a quick hour.
That honestly, you're not whistling Dixie there, my friend. That first hour went quick. I mean, we had a lot to talk about. We have a lot to talk about. I'm looking forward to back, to checking off a bunch of the boxes. Okay, Brett, you're right there. You're in the conversations. The biggest brands in the world, multi-billion-dollar, the top consumer brands in the world you're involved in the conversations about how they are going to create experiences in this new environment. Okay.
Right.
To the extent you have the leeway to tell us what's going on in those conversations, what's getting kicked around.
Well, I'll give it to you in two forms. First is like the return to events. There's a conversation happening because people do want to plan. They do care about, on the brand level, when, they are asking, when can we go back and do a Comic-Con? When can we go back and do an Art Basel? When can we, is Coachella going to happen or not? Which it's not. So there's an interesting conversation happening around the logistical planning of events. And then there's what's going to happen in the next 3 to 6 months. The first 2 months of this out of the last, the first 60 days have been full paralyzation. There was a lot of brands just and it was all marketing, all advertising budgets just crushed. And even if you were in digital, you got impacted. And then last month has been an enormous amount of exploration, coming to us, going to a lot of other agencies, saying what can we do. And that's where a lot of those ideas that I've given you and many more are being born right now. So I'm spending, our team is spending a lot of hours of every day breaking down how do we create these communities, how do we create connection amongst consumers and brands when we can't have them, get them into a physical space together. So on that front, I think there's going to be a lot of money invested. What I think is going to be interesting is what I've heard is, and what I know is happening is a lot of brands are experimenting with changing the way they budget. Print media is gone.
Interesting. Gone. It was in the convalescent home. Now it's say goodbye.
Yeah. And what's funny is they're all calling it an experiment. They're all saying, we're just cutting our print media budget, or, and Condé Nast is like, oh yeah, whatever. And they're going to figure out, and they're doing the same with radio. They're doing the same with radio advertising. The problem, maybe not the problem, but the truth is they're going to all realize they don't miss it in 6 months from now. They're going to realize that sales aren't impacted, brand affinity doesn't change. It might even go up because if they reallocate that money elsewhere. And for experiential, it's interestingly protected, yet I'm spending a lot of time re-educating brands what is experiential if it's not events, because so many people are asking like, why would I call you, Brett? Why would I call your company? You're an events company. And there's a lot of great clients. We work with Diageo, work with Anheuser-Busch, we work with Adidas. They get it. They are brilliant savants of marketing who understand brand management.
Something? I'm gonna interject with the question. Budweiser.
Mm-hmm.
How are beer companies so consistently so fucking good at marketing? If you look back at the last 40 years of American, 40, 50 years, the share of memorable, notable, successful marketing campaigns that were done by beer brands is shocking.
Well, I think it's
so good.
I think it's because they don't have rules. I think that
interesting.
There's so many. We will get a book of brand guidelines that was created by somebody probably 40 years ago, and we have to, adhere this, really cool stunt to a certain level of brand guidelines. We don't have to, beer brands, their brand guideline is have fun, right? Their beer brand, and yeah, Dave's right. I mean, the idea of the Super Bowl ad was the opportunity. They wanted to go to Cannes Lions and win these awards. And Cannes Lions is a really interesting place. One of those award shows where everyone is just celebrating each other and they all mean really nothing. It's just one of the most interesting ones, like the Independent Spirit Awards. Like, I don't know who outside the world is like watching, but I don't like this stealing all Brett's ideas. Those are the ones that didn't get picked up. But yeah, so we, Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, very company that's very open-minded. I have a lot of theories about creativity. I think that the campaign that got a lot of attention at Cannes Lions last year. Do you remember when IHOP changed their name to IHOP?
Oh, wow.
Burgers.
Yep. Very strong. Very strong.
That campaign delivered them something like $500 million in new revenue after 4 p.m. every day. They could not figure out how to make money after 4 p.m. And, they did this whole thing with the, changing the signage. And there's a reel, I think it's on YouTube, because Droga did the campaign of all the media they got. And all these people, like on the Today Show going, International House of Burgers, are these people a bunch of idiots, And the CMO went on stage and he goes, you know why this campaign even happened? Because we didn't let anyone approve it. If we had gone through the approval process, that is a conveyor belt of killing a great idea. It would have been killed 100 times on that conveyor belt. And he said, we let that happen because we didn't tell anyone that was going to happen until the franchisees was going to happen. We just started and we approved the idea. One person looked at the brief and they did it. So I spend, time wondering, hearing our ideas, sometimes even getting shot down, and then, realizing it wasn't a bad idea. There's a conveyor belt killing creativity. So that actually for them delivered an enormous amount of revenue after 4 p.m., which was obviously a time IHOP wasn't doing so well. Or maybe it was 4 p.m. So, right now everyone is analyzing how do we maintain our lifestyle status? How, you don't go and buy $75 yoga pants from Alo because they're they're any better. You buy them because you're part of a certain community. You are part of a certain cult. And in order to activate that, they need an experiential ecosystem. They need to be doing yoga classes and studios and, cultivating their community and doing all these things. And that's something like an agency like us or somebody has to help with. And so that's all that's happening now.
So to what extent is your business that I don't want to say basic because that has negative connotations because that's not what it is. The new prong of marketing that is pure community building events, getting people to come to events.
Mm-hmm.
Some of whom happen to be notable people with 50,000 followers or up that are influencers, and that basic, is that something that's top of mind for you guys, or is that something like, okay, that's just going to happen, we need 2 people on each account and we can kind of forget about that? Or is that a little farther towards the top of the priority list?
Bringing back you mean bringing back real life?
Meaning like the whole idea of like Alo Yoga having like a Beverly Hills facility. They do some yoga events there. They do some sound baths and breathing exercises. I mean, at this point, it feels like that is a default standard aspect of marketing. It's not something that you need your best minds on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Alo Yogas and certain companies have done it themselves, but there's a billion companies that are so big and have been around so long that need that help. I think Adidas is a good example. They're a wonderful client, and they're a big company. It's been around a long time, but the Yeezy wasn't around all this time, right? They have gone through transformation after transformation.
They have done a great job. The social media age, they've done phenomenally.
And they become a lifestyle brand, and they aren't known for that. And they're owned by people out of Germany. It's a very different mentality there. So we are going down to a granular level and helping them execute, celebrating high school athletes and telling high school athlete stories, and helping them find a way to meet with a real coach, a real college coach or a real professional coach, and all these different things. And to me, that's the same pivot that Alo, had ingrained into their DNA of like, well, we got to be more than a clothing company. We need to be a lifestyle. And then you've got Under Armour that sucked at the whole thing and has, their stock has gone down by, probably 70% in the last couple, maybe 4 or 5 quarters. And it's because they didn't really live that truth. They never really, they said a lot of big things, signed, I think, was it Steph Curry, Misty Copeland. They had a couple really interesting people, and they never showed the world what they stood for. So that does need to happen, and that's something that we're thinking about every day. And right now, that's what brands are asking for. So
okay, perfect segue in terms of what brands are asking for right now.
Yeah.
Traditionally, even for someone a little more, not a little more, a lot more innovative, like what you guys are doing, you're still living in an RFP world.
Mm-hmm.
Brands are coming up with ideas. They're saying, internally, they got a fucking big department. They got a bunch of people. They got a CMO getting paid a big fucking salary. And they're saying, what do we want to do as a brand? We're going to determine what we want to do. We're going to generate an RFP. We're going to send that RFP out to a bunch of agencies, and we're going to choose the one who gives us the best pitch in response to the RFP.
Yeah.
This situation has dislodged that. Okay. Yeah. Now they're coming to people like you for the ideas themselves. They're looking, okay, wait, forget, not that you guys can't execute, because you obviously can execute. If not, you wouldn't have the clients. We know these guys can execute, but we also know that they're coming up with great ideas.
Yeah.
This is so new to us. This is so fucked up. We need people to come up with ideas. They're coming to you earlier in the process. We've kind of busted through that. The RFPs are they're going to be RFPs. People are coming to you almost more as an idea generator or as opposed to an executor of an idea.
There is a lot of work. They want us to explore whether things are even feasible. They would come, RFPs existing in the marketing, creative services, advertising world have been, have existed for a long time, and they've already been debated because it's like, we should give them our idea and they shouldn't pay us for it. That, that idea costs us money. But we were okay with doing it because we knew that they were going to spend money at the end of it, and someone was going to win a contract, and that was going to be okay. Now brands are coming to us and saying, well, we're not sure we're going to do anything because we don't know what we can do in the COVID world.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We should, we're going to call it an RFP, but really we need you to figure out what we should even do, what we can do all the research, do all the legwork, talk to the government if you have to, which we do all day, and define what's legal, possible, allowable, what the CDC will allow. And then we'll let you know if we want to do something. What's hard about that in this crisis and any business owner is I got to pay for all the people to sit there doing it.
Yeah, you've got you need, right? You got a manpower issue.
Yeah.
You can do it. You can do it, and you can do it better than anyone, but it's 24 hours in a day.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just expensive to, have all those people on salary working and not know if, this is going to result in revenue. It's always been a very difficult game, and this doesn't make it any easier because the flow of RFPs has accelerated during the crisis. Everyone wants to know, can I? And, we're developing the ideas. We're giving them the entire framework, which by the way, is the work for when you're producing an event. All these people are like, what do you do with what do you guys even have an office for? Are your events in office, or are they, aren't they at a place for 1 day or 2 days? And I said, what do you think we do leading up to the event for a week, for a month, for 6 months? That a 1-day event might be 3 to 6 months of work. And that's, so that's, what I'm saying, the investment is made. And then they say, okay, go ahead, go do it. Go produce this idea. So it's been hard lately because a lot of brands are not ready to spend, they're ready to explore, and they don't want to pay for it.
Okay.
And that does need to change. There is, Brian is saying, creative and strategy are king. It is true.
Sure.
And what I'm focused on, I've been doing an enormous amount of research with my team on how do you even convince somebody your idea is a good idea. It's subjective to begin with. If I think that this alternative idea for a premiere is brilliant and going to work, and I go and I pitch the CMO, I have to come with the decoder key that I can also give to the CMO that says, by the way, when you read my proposal, you should use this key because this will prove it works. And how, so what do? I go in there with cognitive or psychological data that says, this is the emotional connection people are going to have in the experience. Here's the prosaic moments of the experience, the autopilot moments. Here's the memorable moments. Here's the meaningful moments. And here's the transformational moments. And I will say, we will go, and this is the proof it's going to work. So I have to go a lot of levels deeper because the subjectivity is crazy. Too many times brands pick bad ideas that can't be executed because they don't know. I had a brand want to do this stupid VR thing. And I can't say where because it could be probably Google, but they wanted to do this VR thing. We told them it would never work. That they would spend $3 or $4 million and they would get maybe 200 people a day to see it. So think about the cost per person. The brand went ahead because some other agency said we can get 6,000 people per day, which was never going to happen. Brand calls me 2 days before the event and says, "Can you come clean up the mess?" And we go and we help them. We figure out a way to increase the capacity. We retrain all the people there. And I'm sorry if I'm getting too granular about all this, but
no, we're here to get granular.
This is the most valuable brand in the world, and or one of the top 5 most valuable brands. I don't know who's the most valuable today. One of the top 5, and they say, "Okay, we are so sorry. We'll never do that again." And then 3 months later, they send out an RFP, and they go, your idea was just too realistic. Someone told us that we could do something that involved hovercrafts and all these things. And I said, guys, you just bought an idea, spent millions of dollars of something that wasn't possible. Are you doing it again? And they did. And they fired that company after doing it. So, that is a battle that we have quite often.
So that, one of my, not my favorite show, but one of them is Mad Men. Obviously, it's well known as one of the best shows ever. A running theme through Mad Men was the following. Don Draper believing that he knew better than the client. Mm-hmm. And that part of his job was not just coming up with good ideas. It was convincing the client that he was smarter than they were. And that he said, and that his ideas were better, that you do not listen to the client. You tell the client what is true and what is better.
Yeah.
Not looking for you to give up the secret sauce right now. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on Don Draper's philosophy and approach?
I like that. I love that. And I actually do agree. The idea of authority, the idea of, it's kind of what I was saying, which is I go in there with a level of data that says my focus is whether the idea will work. Will it work? Are you going to sell more Audis because we did this thing? And the events business, the experiential business, all those businesses were formed in a world where you didn't even have to quantify whether it worked. You don't even matter. And so I do feel like I try to go in and act with authority. And I do feel that that is really, really valuable. But we are being afforded that opportunity less and less now. Brands are asking, can you just email me your slides? Like,
Really?
after you
Wait,
work
wait. Is
for
this
months.
pre-COVID or during COVID? Because it feels like they're asking you to accept more authority and responsibility now.
I guess it's a hybrid. In the end, I don't think that they want to give the time to think these things through. Think about how busy we all are, right? Think about how much we don't pay attention to anything.
Yeah.
I don't think that they
Yep.
read my 72-page deck of ideas. I say that's cool. I don't want you to read it. Let me get on the phone with you. Zoom me. I always want them to look us in the eye because it's very easy to write an email saying you didn't win this thing. It's really hard when you see a human being. It's like naming the lobsters in the lobster tank before you kill it at a place. But like,
Well, I'll just toss something in there right there. And this is something that has governed me a lot in my behavior. Harvard Business School study.
Yeah.
A phone and or in-person conversation is 32 times more impactful and persuasive than a digital communication via email or text.
Oh yeah, I mean, 100%.
You want to get what you want. You want to persuade people. You want your conversations to have meaning. You will talk to people. You will not email people.
Yeah, people can't even be sold in an email because the minute that you are having a conversation on the analytics level, like people buy things, and if you're a CMO and you're buying an idea, you're still buying it from the same place that we as consumers buy things, which is a part of our brain known as the limbic system, the old alligator brain, the croc brain, right? Every pitch that I do starts with an appeal to the croc brain, which is, how do I feel about something? I need to feel good about an idea. It's a part of the brain that has no capacity for language. So if language is required, then you're already in a very difficult place. And the analytical world, when you're making that pitch, Samsung and Apple are the best example on a consumer level. Samsung had the best phone. They had a phone that had better battery life. They had a phone that had a better camera, those low light photos. They had everything. And they would go out there and appeal to that neocortex, the analytical brain, saying, oh, by the way, we could give you, we've got a better phone. We got better facts and features. And no one bought the phone, right? Apple goes out and says, are you creative? We are going to make you more creative. And doesn't even talk about the features, right? Apple says, you want to take good, you care about photos. I'll even say, like, we'll make you a better mother to your children because you're going to take better photos of them. You're going to take better photos of, your family. You're going to be a better friend. You're going to be a better business person. You're going to be a better human being because of our phone. Doesn't even matter that our battery life isn't much better or that you're locked into the Apple ecosystem or whatever it is. And that analytical sale is the problem with so many products. And we believe that experiential can be that part of that solution, but it's just really bad, Anyways.
Okay, so these brands that are at the forefront of fucking society right now, okay? You are seeing their budgets, you're seeing their behavior, you're seeing the fluctuations of, okay, this is something that we discussed previously. Mm-hmm. Boom, and I don't think enough people are talking about this. There's about a week in early to mid-March that the world will never be the same. Mm-hmm. March, maybe 12th to 19th, everything changed in that week. Okay. And people it's going to be like when Hitler invaded Poland.
Yeah.
Okay? In response to that, all the biggest companies in the world pull their marketing budgets because that's what big companies do.
Yeah.
Okay. Even if it's not rational, that's what they do. I talked about it with Eric Huberman because he said, hey, if you're a D2C brand that's not one of these big companies that might have picked up steam in the last 10 years, all of a sudden you're paying a lot less for your cost of acquisition just dropped because all these big companies that were jacking up the ad rates, they dropped their budgets.
Yeah.
Similar to the clients that you have, they drop their budgets. But then they start thinking, what can we do? We've got to reach our consumers. We've got to do marketing. Here's what we're going to do. We're doing some basic shit. Oh, here's a person. He's fucking cooking. he's doing a yoga, like all the very low hanging fruit, Instagram Live, Zoom, not, whatever, it's what I'm doing, but we're doing it good. The low hanging fruit of live streaming as the replacement for marketing for all these brands. But they quickly realized, okay, this is not optimal. This is not the best we can do. So tell us about that evolution of these brands doing putting a patchwork, putting a Band-Aid on the wound for a second, but now trying to figure out, okay, what are we really trying to do here, guys?
Yeah, there's two big components of doing this new altruistic kind of marketing, and it's utility and participation. So
love that.
Everybody very quickly said, we need to, all the brands said, we should just probably bring, we just need to give people something to do. So let's give them a Zoom workout. Let's hire a chef and do, let's call Little John. We'll send him a bottle of tequila and he'll go Instagram Live with the bottle. And,
Sure.
And that, in some degree, was meant to provide utility. It was meant to give you something entertaining. But because it lacked participation, because
very passive,
because it was passive, it did not transcend to an experience, and it did not fill. They realized it's not really filling the gaps. I have a screenshot of, well, I shouldn't say because they're a friend of ours, but of a brand that hired the Black Eyed Peas recently that's another story, to go on their Instagram Live of 455,000 people, and they had 107 viewers, I think it was 108, and built a set and did all this crazy stuff. It had this VR kind of set thing with, it had LED and green screen layered on top of each other. So what people want is they want to play a role in the story, and that requires a level up of the idea from being that passive piece of content. No one's going to make a better piece of content than Netflix is. If you're trying to compete, and my brain is the opportunity between, to watch the Zoom workout or go watch Mindy Kaling's new show, I'm going to go check that out, right? Unless it's completely novel, like something like this, which I think is this is novel and this is something different. I have a lot of theories about the depth of news and what's happened there.
We'll get to that in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, but it doesn't fill the void. So that's what we're doing right now, inventing a lot of ways to deliver these interesting, engaging, participatory opportunities for people to be part of, and move it out of the passive to the active phase. Absolutely. There's an X and Y axis, and it's absorption versus immersion and passive versus active. And you want to be in the quadrant where you're both immersed and active. Disneyland is immersive because you're there, but you're passive. You can't change. And passive and active means, can you change the nature of the experience yourself? You can't change Disneyland. But there, our experiences, test driving a car, you control the outcome of that experience. So quite different. And we want to think.
Do you think a Disney experience can be shifted in that direction where, listen, obviously, and we're going to get at Disney in a second in terms of the NBA, in terms of them as the leader and who's leading the charge to figure out what the live experience is going to look like. Mm-hmm. Can you take the traditional Disney experience and make it more engaging, interactive, chaotic, customized?
Oh, yeah. We actually did a Instagram museum for Disney at Disneyland last year. And, offline we talk about a couple things, but we did a pop-up Mickey. We built it right outside Disneyland. It had a ticket. And it was the first time that they really actively embraced social media. So it was very interesting to talk to them and hear them talk about their philosophy on Mickey and the brand, and it was Mickey's 90th birthday.
Because they're 90 years into it.
Yeah.
Nobody else is 90. Nobody else is 90 years in to modern marketing and branding and character development and live events in the way that Disney is. They have a body of knowledge that is simply unparalleled.
But I'll tell you this, and this is my theory, and we can talk about that for hours, but I do not think that their park methodology and their geniuses translates from passive to active. I don't think that they know how to help people participate in the story yet. They want to stage, Disneyland is staged as a play. And there's all these really interesting, there's a reason that there are trash cans every 15 feet. There's a reason that they all wear tags.
Love that.
There is there's a reason, I don't know if children get lost at Disneyland all the time. Have you ever heard a loudspeaker at a supermarket, this child is lost? No, you never heard that, because they have an incredible orchestra of what they do behind the scenes when they find a lost kid. It involves Goofy. It involves this behind the scenes radio network. It's bananas. So so that type of experience, they're really good at giving you that passive experience that you absorb. I don't know if they figured out how to have you play a role in the story. However, Star Wars Land is is their test place for it. It's totally a different experience.
Wow.
You go in there, it's the first time they talk negatively to you. So the stormtrooper is say, get over there, human. They have the first time Disneyland's ever experimented with pulling other emotions than smiles and happiness. And, if you go through that resistance ride, they're fighting with each other. There's no fighting in Disneyland. Not even even in Universal, you had the stunt shows where they would fight each other.
Miami Vice.
Miami Vice. That's how old we are.
The Miami Vice live show. Phenomenal.
Yes. But they don't do that at Disneyland. There's no fighting in the show in any of the rides. They're testing it in Star Wars Land because they're going to open a Marvel Land soon, and they're going to be doing those same things. So I think that they're an amazing case study. They are the case study for live events. They're one of the few, unregulated monopolies that I think is not evil. So I think that, they're one of the people that we should look to in a positive way in this kind of new economy. There's going to be some innovation there. It's why sports are going there.
Well, okay, that's interesting because I've been thinking about that. Obviously, me. I'm to the extent Walt Disney cared about Mickey Mouse. That's how much I care about the NBA. I fucking love the NBA. It's near and dear to my soul. I try to keep track. The common sense. What was that?
Nick had a good idea. You can choose characters in VR ride. Yeah, I mean,
Allegra has a lot. We're gonna get to Opera and Crimson in about 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
The NBA, Vegas seems like the easiest pickings, makes the most sense. But then it goes to Orlando, and then I'm thinking, oh, of course, because Disney, ABC, that's who has the broadcast rights. Whatever, it's not a big deal. Orlando's a great place for the NBA to revive and play out the rest of their season. To as far as what you've heard about Disney's plans, about how that's going to play out in Disney, the NBA, or anything else that's going on, what have you heard that you can disclose?
Well, so I got to see a couple of interesting things, but none of them will surprise you. Everyone's explored all different kinds of technology for temperature checks. There was actually a 60-minute episode that showed some of the Amazon technology. And Disney wants to be the world's first fully vaccinated theme experience, just like Amazon wants to be the world's fully vaccinated supply chain. But I truly believe this is actually coming to an end a lot. We're going to be shocked.
What is coming to an end?
COVID. I think we're going to see.
Temporarily, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really stayed on the front lines of it because to me, it's one of the big key performance indicators for me to figure out my cash flow status. Am I going to have this reduced amount of revenue until, June of 2020 or June of 2021 or when in between,
Totally.
And there's a lot of evidence showing that places are achieving herd immunity at 10% of antibody or infection. And
interesting. We'll see if herd immunity is the right term for what you just described.
Agree.
Might not be. The concept you communicate might be correct, but it might not be the right term. But I see what you're saying.
Well, I don't mean that's the only factor either. That's one dimension of it. Another dimension of it is different people may have very different transmission potential. Meaning, what if it turned out that all people under the age of 60 really can't transmit it very easily? Really hard to transmit. I think that we're finding that because we're not seeing the spikes in the numbers. Everyone is watching, and the numbers are lagging indicators. So we really don't know about Florida, and all these people that have been out partying the past few weekends. I had friends in Arizona last weekend partying in Scottsdale. So we won't know for a few weeks, but I think we're gonna continue to see this same trend, which is that spike isn't happening. The spike in Georgia that we talked about, the spike in Florida, it's just not happening. And the one common denominator has been nursing homes. It has been the treatment of nursing homes. And you have Cuomo, who essentially sent back a lot of people out of the hospital back to their nursing homes where they reinfected people and continued to kind of spread it. And by the way, he was just listening to the guidelines of the CDC and the Trump administration. Those were their guidelines. It was Ron DeSantis that ignored those guidelines and let people and really crack down on the nursing home side of things. So my point is,
I'm just gonna say something real quick.
Yeah.
Ron DeSantis had a low 70s approval rating.
Yeah.
Over the past, you got to get it up to a guy. Yeah. There's a reason he had an approval rating in the 70s.
Yeah, for
sure. Doing a very good job.
100%.
There's some people in Miami. I know some people in Florida who had a few problems with some of the stuff he's doing.
Yeah.
The guy had a fucking he barely won his election and then had an approval rating in the 70s.
Yeah,
that's
we don't have to talk about what happened to Andrew Gillum post all that. But
I got to be honest, I think that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
The guy who almost became the governor of Florida was caught in a threesome gay prostitute orgy, meth. It was as bad. There's some things that don't live up to the hype of the initial clickbait cycle. This exceeded the clickbait cycle.
It was like hard to click on it. There was photos. There's the whole thing. I follow all it. I'm like a politics junkie. I just gotta give a shout out to The West Wing, my favorite show of all time. I still watch.
Sorkin does great. He does great dialogue. There's no doubt about it.
His publicist was in here for a minute, Maria. So I started commenting. But yeah, so I think that if we start to see the trends very quickly, that this thing is coming to an end. A lot of these very intense ideas that are being floated around, temperature checks being probably one of them, testing at the door of something, which we don't even have the test for, are not going to happen. Because I sit in meetings that people say, okay, we're going to have, because if you have a test that's happening, right, at the door, or you have someone just doing temperature checking, you have to have an entire facility next door of what you do with the people when they test positive.
Yes, it's very complicated, guys.
It's a triage. So I went through this rule book the other day that was like, you have to have all these nurses or these RNs. You have to move the people out. You have to quarantine the line that they went through, and that costly, aggressive, intense process is something no one wants to actually have to logistically implement.
Sure.
And I know crazy people that are like, a guy asked me the other day to come up with a couple $1 million for their machines, their body scanning machines that are going to be able to no contact, So we are, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm very interested Nightlife, all of our friends in Nightlife, many, Politic, Kelvin, everyone talking right now in here, is definitely going to be an interesting barometer, because those are things that can return quicker than when we have to plan Comic-Con next year and Art Basel and all these things that will be on my plate. But I've seen it all. I've seen temperature checking. I've seen, having a rapid test that supposedly is being invented right now. We've seen a lot of those things.
I'm super skeptical of that one, man. I mean, already we're seeing a lot of the testing. Yeah. Man, I mean, this is something that really came out of nowhere. I have propagated a lot of data. I've taken okay, this is what this is saying. I want to try to interpret it for you. But all of that comes with a caveat that this is super new. All of the technologies, all of the things, we can be very confident, relatively confident that a test, a number, data regarding something that's been around for a couple decades is within a certain margin of error pretty accurate.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
Then you bring this around. We're trying to compress 20 years into 2 months.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a lot of inaccuracies.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true, but I also think that over 20 years, everyone works on a lot of shit, and now everyone in the world is working on one thing, on one very narrow lane.
Also very true.
Yeah, everyone's working on one very narrow lane. You know that there's many drugs in moving to clinical trial. There's drugs that seem to already be working, and that discounts the therapeutics step between vaccine and now. And once there's just therapeutics, once there's just, hey, take this antiviral thing that will, make this thing last 4 days instead of almost 3 weeks, the world will allow a lot to happen. I talk to brands, bring it back to them, that are on both sides of the spectrum. They're Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, the wonderful Mark Zuckerberg, decided to post, as we use this platform, that they're not going to host any events until June of 2021. A dangerous and just unnecessary announcement this early. Talk about not having all the information.
Agreed.
And they host some big events. Their F8 conference, and we do a lot of events with them. We launched IGTV for them, but they there's a lot of events that they just say we're going to stop doing events until June of 2021. Well, then Microsoft came out just a couple weeks later and said that too. They opened a door for it to become socially acceptable. Now, I don't think, and then I talked to other brands that we were driving around the Scooby-Doo truck last weekend, for a Warner Brothers movie. So, there's brands that want to be out there and are ready, and they don't want to be shut down. And I think also because their lifeblood is that experience, is activating, because without that, they are just a commodity. And if they're just a commodity, they're not going to be able to compete in the marketplace.
One aspect that I try to communicate to both the people who are more slanted towards COVID being, exaggerated and COVID being a serious is you have to factor in the unknown. Okay. If you want to have a really shrewd or insightful position on anything that's going on within any subcategory, you got to understand, listen, you got to factor in the fact that people don't fucking know.
Totally.
Okay. And the story. So anyone who's saying, we're not going to do X till June 2020, you don't know what the world's going to look like. We started this in mid-March. We're not even to the end of May. Look at what on earth has happened in the past 10 weeks. Yeah. You're really going to tell me what the next year is going to look like? Don't tell me that.
They don't.
I don't buy you.
You
have many if you tell me that.
And there's so many human variables we're seeing right now. I mean, we have friends that are in New York that were out all weekend last weekend, out in the sun, or 2 weekends ago out in the sun. Miami's been raging. Restaurants are open, today. I had friends that went to a club this past weekend in Scottsdale. The whole shebang, and so I think a variable is humans. If they're just like, fuck this, I'm going out all the time, I'm doing things. Consumer opinion matters, but does that mean brands will come in and gamble their lives away?
Because they're more risk averse traditionally.
Yeah, They are. You know, and especially if we don't know who holds the liability, if you went into a convention center and got sick. But for Mark Zuckerberg, the thing that I felt was really reckless about him saying we're not going to do events until June of 21 is how many people he actually just unemployed immediately. The Moscone Center in San Francisco and the Bill Graham Auditorium, two huge, massive venues, probably employ between 2,000 and 5,000 people. And if those places start to go out of business, it's not just the event producers like us and Brian Diamond. It's the security staff, the parking staff, the cooks that make the hot dogs and the chicken tenders. It's the labor unions that set everything up. It's thousands and thousands of people that are really majorly unemployed in what I think is a very big part of the economy. It's the hotel. You know, how many people fly in for F8, their biggest conference? They're all unemployed. You know, the hotels nearby in San Francisco will be impacted. You're talking about another huge economy. So these are big, you know, economies that are disrupted by gatherings. And you can say, you know, this canceling sports will disrupt those economies. Canceling, you know, even the movie industry. Like, there's a lot of things that do it, but I actually believe that the entertainment focused hospitality economy is a really, really big one. And
and this is why guys like you and Brian Diamond, who are, you know, the friends in Seinfeld of the experiential world, just at the forefront, okay? Supplemental, not competitive. Or like a Mark Birnbaum and Jason Pomerank, who I've spoken with, and, you know, people who are in the hospitality and restaurant and club world. You guys are all at the crossroads of 12 different fucking industries.
Yeah, totally true. And there's been, you know, what bothers me a lot is I went out and got the PPP loan, and, you know, I'm still a small business classified by, you know, or middle market business classified. So like going back to, you know, thinking about government and how the government has been reacting and how, you know, they said we got to figure out small businesses. They come out with the PPP loan, and there are so many levels and so many dimensions to which that is really missed. And the idea that 2 months of our expenses are going to help us, you know, that 2 months of expenses are going to allow these industries that are disrupted for a year. And I'm not saying I want a government handout at all. I'm saying I'd rather than take $3 trillion and spend it a little bit smarter. And what upsets me is I hear that, like, oh, we got to fix restaurants. And I'm like, yeah, restaurants and hotels and convention centers and a lot more people that are attached to a lot more than the restaurant, you know? So the whole, you know, the whole way the government has responded, there is a validity to of responding to a immediate depression recession with money velocity, which is throwing a lot of money into the system as fast as possible. That is the number one antidote to a massive, you know, depression or recession. Nevertheless, it's ending up in the hands of some of the wrong people in a lot of different ways, or not being given to us in a way to spend it most efficiently. You know, let us, if you want to give it to us, let us hand it.
You're not wrong. I mean, it's unfortunately an inevitability about trying to conduct a project of this scope in this short amount of time. If you are looking for holes to poke, you're gonna find them.
And you know, I'm not even mad that Ruth Chris and those people got the money. That's like not my problem with it. It's that Congress passed a law, Treasury departments reinterpret it 5 different times. I don't know if you know, but the PPP loan doesn't have its full rolls out yet. You had to have spent. Some people will have had to have spent the money by last week, so they don't know if they spent it right. They might be told they spent it incorrectly. We're still waiting to know several different dimensions, and our time is going to be up in 2 weeks. So, you know, anyways, that's part of where it's all happening. I mean, one thing on the forefront is not just marketing industry, but it's just businesses that have no support mechanism. That I'm not owned by a big holding company, but I employed 110 people before this pandemic, and I still have 60 people on the payroll today. And
okay, so you went just so to understand what a business like yours goes through.
Yeah.
You went from 110 to 60.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
60 is probably a 55 more than the worst case scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty good to keep 60.
Yeah.
But that's how a calibration goes.
What's the question?
The question is, a small business that has 50 to 150 employees,
yeah,
that has to be in a condition like yourself where I know I can still make money, but it's going to take more work to make less money. How do you recalibrate?
It's a great question. Deep. You have to decide the comfort level of going all in, and I could probably have a lot more money in my bank account if I didn't keep it going right now. I could hit the pause button, shut it down, and gamble what the other side of it, and then restart operations. And this is what I think restaurants are considering, and all these businesses, and then restart operations when things look normal again. However, I believe that the companies that persevere, that invest, that add to the breadth, to the kind of horizontal scope of their services, will steal an enormous amount of market share from those that give up. So the question is, what do you want to do? Do you want to invest more to have potentially more in the back end, or do you want to end up in a situation where you have to really truly rebuild from zero, and your clients may have already been, I'm dating so many other people's clients right now that just closed doors down or shut down, that we probably wouldn't have done if we didn't have that opportunity. So I do think that market share, it's an opportunity to steal market share, but you gotta be bold, and you gotta have some serious nerves, because I'm gonna put the number one thing, I'm putting an enormous amount of money back in, right? That's just what it is. That's what you have to do. You have to have, and you have to be able to navigate the deals and put the money in. So, both. I mentioned I had made some good deals on my rent. I made some good deal, on some of the way the business was structured to begin with, that there's a little luck here, but I don't know what's going to happen.
Listen, hey, we all, to the extent that anyone had long-term liabilities that were built off projections created 2017 to 2020.
Done.
Scary times. Scary times.
I have 14,000 square feet brand new in the Pacific Design Center. I just finished building. We worked out of it for. If you hadn't negotiated that properly, it could be a very, very ugly experience for you right now. Yeah. I talked to a lot of people about the real estate side of things, because and so I have this fabrication company as well. One of the things in our vertical, we spend all this money, building the components of these big experiences. So we built our own company that could fabricate set pieces, scenic elements, props, all those different things. So that company, obviously, it's called Treehouse, and also hurt really badly as well, because without their primary client was events, there was a little bit of television and film. So that company, and you're hearing it first here, is reinventing itself as a bespoke office retrofitting company. And the line has been around the block. We actually built a proprietary product that's coming out next week, but we are going to go around and help hospitality companies, restaurants, the open office, find a way to post-COVID retrofit. And that pivot is actually really exciting. We've already done several medical offices that wanted to reopen.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's a thing that a lot of companies like that would just push pause. And instead, I'm keeping everyone on. And I spent serious money building all this new marketing content to promote this totally new offering. It's, creating a completely new offering. These guys can build anything, including plexiglass shields at the front desk of a desk, so people don't sneeze on the people greeting you at the front desk of an office. All the signage that says "wait here," that puts people into lines. a really interesting partition, because every office is the open office. And now we got to rethink that. So we've got a really cool product that you can plop onto your desk, and it'll transform your desk from the open office to, you know, a more private office. So definitely.
Yeah, I was always a little skeptical of what was going on with that open office floor plan. I mean, guys, you got to be able to take a goddamn phone call without everybody else hearing your goddamn phone call. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with
that, Matt. I have an open office, or we built an open office, but we built an enormous number of phone booths, gathering spaces, all different types of spaces that allow you to do that type of stuff. But you're right. It is a whole thing, and I just went through it for the past 2 years, learning about space design and floor planning and stuff like that. And what about WeWork? They're in trouble.
Oh man, where do we even go on WeWork? I mean, we're going to come up to the end of the second hour, because me and Brett Hyman, whenever we talk, it just 2 hours goes by that quickly, and that's how much value we bring to the audience. Okay, but because we covered that much ground, and we're coming up to end of hour 2, you know, we'll take it easy on everybody. Okay, so let's dive back into the mid 2000s, and the Brett Hyman, Andrew Belinsky.
Andy.
You know, that's how I knew you. You were promoting along with my brother.
Yep.
You know, luckily, I figured out, oh my God, here's how to operate socially, and here's how to make money off it. A little late in the game, I was like, oh, my brother, who's 4.5 years younger than me, here's the blueprint.
Yeah. I got introduced to Andy. I'm trying to remember if it was Brian Toll introduced us. But he was this smart, he was also smart, but really he was obviously Belinsky, so a good looking guy. And he was never the promoter that came with, like, you know, hundreds of people, but he had like 10 or 20 like beautiful girls always.
That were good. Yeah, he was quality over quantity. Quality over quantity.
And so I'd always be like, put Andy near this guy who's going to spend a lot of money, so he can, like, the girls can, like, bleed on the table. And he would be really, really, I mean, there's a lot of people that became that person, but
just so you know, there's only 90 seconds until this runs out, so just make it count.
And well, I'll leave it at, you know, Andy and I had a few great after parties, a few great stories that are probably in the vault. And I'd love to hear what he has to say about his perception of first meeting this one other Jewish promoter in LA, and his perception of what that was like, because similarly I was.
Oh man.
So.
Yeah, listen, you guys did great work together. I'm proud of the work you did. I'm proud of the direction you took. You know, in another lifetime, Andy Belinsky would have leaned into nightlife and promoting into marketing, and he would have been NVE, Brett Hyman, Andy Belinsky, and you guys would have been doing your things together. He took a different path. Either way, it worked. The comments are no fucking joke. Okay, this was an amazing discussion. Everyone got a lot of value out of it. We discussed some amazing ideas. Brett, it's a pleasure talking to you, as it always is. Thank you for joining us tonight. Everybody, I don't have to hope that you got value out of it, because I know you did.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Matt, for having me. I love talking to you. It's so fun. This is a great one.
Always a good time, guys. Everybody, good one.
Take care.